बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलाम वालेकुम स्टूडेंट्स। उम्मीद करता हूँ कि आप सब लोग खैरियत के साथ होंगे and I welcome you all here today to the 9th lecture of Consumer Psychology. As usual, let us start our day with a brief description of what we discussed in our last lecture. In our last lecture, we finished studying quantitative designs of the primary research by having a detailed discussion on the topic of surveys. We discussed that when researchers need to understand different kinds of issues, they need to ask questions from their consumers. And they can do so either, number one, in person, number two, on the telephone, number three, they can send questionnaires by mail to the target consumers, and number four, with the growing understanding and with the growing appreciation of internet in our lifestyle, now the surveys are being conducted on the internet as well. So let me give you a brief review of the four types of surveys, and so that I could refresh your memories about different techniques that are utilized in conducting these surveys. When we talked about the personal surveys, there are two kinds of surveys that are conducted. Number one is that either the researcher goes to the home of the target consumer, or number two is they intercept them on the malls, shopping malls. So let's first of all discuss the home surveys. The home surveys are quite complicated and quite tedious in the sense that conducting these surveys becomes gradually very, very difficult. For example, if you are a researcher and you plan to conduct your study by going to the home of the respondents, then number one thing that you require is to have the addresses of hundreds or more than hundreds, sometimes even thousands of target consumers. Then you need to make them telephone calls so that you could introduce yourself and seek appointment with them to come to their home and ask them questions. Usually this becomes very, very difficult. On the other hand, people who are at their homes and they receive calls from researchers like the ones we are discussing in this example, they might not be ready to invite the researcher at their home. Because every time a new person comes into home, he or she is likely to be stranger. And given to our culture, we try to act like hosts for them, and we try to be in the presentable condition, not only our dresses and clothes, but also we try to keep our homes shipshape and in fixed up position. So this requires a lot of work hard on both the part of the researcher as well as the respondent. So gradually this process becomes difficult and tedious, especially in these days when there is growing insecurity amongst the people. It also becomes difficult that they would not let the strangers come to their place. And on the other hand, when the final meeting takes place and the interview is going on, the respondents start acting like the host to the interviewer, and they start answering the question in a way that would be appreciated by the researcher. And this collapses the entire objective of the research study. So conducting surveys through the home is not usually very much advisable, but this could be done only in the cases when there is no other option available. The second type of personal surveys we discussed in our last lecture was intercepting the consumers while they are busy purchasing their items from the retail stores. In consumer psychology, this is called mall intercepts. This is a good way of intercepting the target consumers because all the memories about the products and different product-related features are quite fresh in their minds. And at that time, if a researcher happens to be in the scenario and he starts asking questions from them, then since their memory is refreshed, they can always easily relate to or associate with different kinds of products and their features, and even detailed discussions can be carried out. However, there is a small problem over here because when people come to the malls, shopping malls or the retail stores, they are usually in a hurry. They do not have a lot of time by their side. And simultaneously, since they are purchasing the product, which means that they have to spend money, they are in a critical decision-making state of mind in which they might not have the peace of mind to answer the questions completely in a truthful manner. Another problem that arises in these areas is that respondents on the shopping malls, they do not tend to be original at times because there is a gentleman or a lady who's asking them questions, so their answers could be extremely made up or extremely artificial at times. Students, we then discussed the third type of surveys, which are called mail surveys. In mail surveys, a researcher drafts a questionnaire in such a fashion that the interviewer could go through and understand the questionnaire without the help of the expert by his side. Now, researchers usually draft questionnaires, and they mail these questionnaires to the target respondents. Target respondents, on the other hand, when they receive the questionnaires, the researchers expect that on their convenient time they would open up the envelopes, or pull out the questionnaires, read them in detail, answer all of the questions, and then put them back in an envelope and go to the post office and courier the surveys back to the researcher. If you try to understand that this process sounds too ideal if it carries out in exactly the same fashion as we are talking about, however, in reality it also becomes very, very tedious and very, very difficult. Because, first of all, when a researcher is planning to conduct surveys through the mails, then number one, he needs to have a huge database of the target respondents. He needs to have their complete mailing addresses, and if they are trying to use the courier companies, then they need to have their telephone numbers as well. Maintaining these databases in itself becomes a huge task. Then a standard mail shot is sent out to the target respondents. Now, target respondents, on the other hand, they are living their own life, and they are busy in their own schedules and their own routines. When they receive an envelope from an XYZ company, which they open up and they find out a letter inside which is directing them to open up the questionnaire and start answering the question, it becomes kind of difficult for them. And they always keep on postponing filling the questionnaire on some other convenient time. Even certain times when the target respondents will be able to open the envelopes and fill out the questionnaire and respond accordingly, then many times those questionnaires would remain at the respondent's home because they could not find the time to purchase new envelopes or the tickets and put them back in the envelopes and courier them back to the target to the researchers. To minimize the difficulties and help deal with the intricacies of this kind of survey technique, researchers need to carry out certain precautionary steps. And those include, number one, they first of all send an introductory letter to their target respondents, in which they not only introduce themselves, their company, as well as the objective of the research. And they request the target respondent to fill out the questionnaire. At certain times, there is a certain price attached with filling out the questionnaire, which is in shape of certain products that are given to the respondents for free, and sometimes respondents are also paid. Researchers then put in their envelope a self-addressed stamped envelope so that respondents do not have to go purchase another envelope and buy a ticket, put it on the envelope and send it back. So to save the respondent from a lot of hassle, all those things are already packed in the standard package which is sent towards the respondent. So students, I hope you would have understood the intricacies involved in the mail service as well. The third type of surveys that we discussed were telephonic surveys. The telephonic surveys are conducted in a fashion that a questionnaire is carefully drafted, and then the researcher sits by the telephone. He has a huge database in front of him, and he starts making phone calls. Now, the questionnaire, when it is drafted for the telephonic surveys, is designed in such a fashion that the respondents could understand the questions while the researcher is reading out those questions from the questionnaire. Now, there are certain intricacies in the telephonic surveys as well. For example, number one, the most important thing for the researcher would be that he needs to be very clear when he or she is speaking, which means that they need to be trained a little bit in the calling techniques. Now, when you're making a phone call to someone, the other person on the other hand is expecting something to happen. They are expecting maybe some of their relatives or some loved ones or some important colleagues are calling them. However, when it turns out that on the other hand is a researcher who is going to start asking them tedious questions, then their first reaction is that of frustration. At this point, if a respondent if a researcher is smart enough, then he will be careful enough to phrase his questions in this fashion that the respondents could engage in a discussion with the researcher. Now, let's suppose the researcher is trained enough in the calling techniques and they are able to engage the target respondents on the telephone. Then they need to be very clear, explicit while asking the questions so that the respondent on the other side of the line is able to understand the questions clearly. You know what, it mostly happens that when we are communicating with the people, we are not only getting the audio cues but visual cues as well. Suppose I am talking to you, then you are not only listening to my voice, but you are looking at me. And based upon your reading of my facial expressions and my gestures, my smiles, my nods, these are all a huge channel that is communicating the message to you. Now, on the telephone, the visual part is totally missing, which is why understanding the researcher's question on the telephone, it slightly becomes difficult and difficult with the passage of time. And as the interview proceeds towards the middle, somewhere around that point, the respondents start getting tired and they would just start answering the question, whatever comes to their mind, in order to finish off with the interviews. Certain other intricacies are also involved, which means that the researchers need to be extremely cautious about the timings as well. If the target respondents happen to be ladies who are working as housewives or who just stay at home, then the better time period to talk to them would be sometime right after the breakfast, when they have prepared the breakfast for their husbands or their kids and they have sent them to school. Then they have some time by their side to relax. Usually this time period is between 10 to 12 in the morning. At this time, if a researcher calls, chances are they might get a positive response from the household ladies. Other than that, probably a convenient time could be right after the lunch has been prepared and the ladies are waiting for the kids to come back from the school. And since they are passing the times, then at this point of time, a researcher may make a phone call. When we are talking about the males, the kids as well as the adults, then calling them in the morning is not suitable at all, because kids go to schools and adults go to their offices in the morning times and they stay there till late in the afternoons or till late evenings. To talk to males and adults, the best possible time would be in the late evenings when the males have already come back home and they have relaxed for a while and they have spent some time with their loved ones after they have spent a complete day out of home. Then this is a good time for them to engage in a discussion like that with a surveyor. So timing constraints need to be taken care of, and finally, the most important thing about the telephonic service would be that all of these intricacies need to be taken care of one by one individually in order to make the entire process successful on the whole. So students, these were the 4 different types of service that we discussed in our last lecture. We also discussed certain data collection instruments as well, and we finished the data collection instruments during the last 2 lectures. We discussed 2 of the 3 data collection instruments, which included number 1, questionnaires, number 2, personal inventories, and number 3, attitude scales. Since we have already discussed the concept of questionnaires and personal inventories, we will today discuss the concept of attitude scales as well. Before I take you into the heart of the subject today, let me also remind you one of the very important concepts that we discussed, which was reliability and validity. So students, let's talk about attitude scales. However, before we discuss attitude scales, this is important to understand that what the word attitude means. What exactly is this word? What does it mean? And how this word is perceived in the language of the consumer psychology. In order to make you understand the word attitude, let me play a small game with you. Are you ready? I hope you have your pencils and papers handy with you. If you don't have them by your side, then I give you 5-10 seconds to gather them up. Maybe next time you would be careful and you would keep your pencils and papers with you. All right. The game is that I am going to speak 3 words consecutively, one after the other. And all you have to do is to write down 3 words that come to your mind after watching the stimulant word. Is that clear to you? Are you ready? Okay, look at the screen, and the first word that appears is mother. All you have to do is to write 3 words that come to your mind. I hope you would have done this. Have you written the 3 words? Very good. Now let's go to the next word. The next word is home. Just write whatever comes to your mind. There are no right or wrong answers. Just feel free. Are you done? Okay. And the last word is car. Yes, cars. Cars are beautiful. If I'm not stimulating you already, so I hope you would have written the 3 words in response to the word car as well. Okay, now let's suppose, since there is no direct communication between yourself and myself here, and I cannot speak to you and get my response immediately, so I would take the advantage of guessing what you could possibly have written. My guess is, as you could see on the slide, that on the word mother you would have written love, kind, security, and I hope that most of the people would be writing the similar kinds of words. And with reference to the word home, you might have written something like comfort, peace, safety. And with reference to the word car, you may have written something like durable, stylish, and powerful. Wonderful. Now, let's come back. The main question is that why have you written these 3 words? In fact, I have been giving this exercise to a lot of students out there, and the words that I have guessed over here are usually, on the average, these are the words that I usually get from the students. But the main question remains that why do we write these kinds of words in response to the stimulant words? Can you guess it? Great. I can already see that you are getting in there. Well, these words represent our attitudes. Our attitudes are learned predispositions towards behaving in certain ways towards certain objects. Let's say, for example, every time I speak the word mother, or you come across a woman who looks like a mother figure, then you tend to be respectful in your attitude. You tend to expect that this lady would be kind and affectionate, because that's the way you have learned the word mother, and that's the way you have been used to seeing the figures, the mother figures. So similarly, when I spoke the word home and the words like peace, comfort, and security come to your mind, it is only because that every time we build a home, we want our home to be peaceful, we want our home to be comfortable, and home is the place where we find maximum security away from the world. And even if our home is sometimes might unfortunately be missing on any one of these 3 elements or items, then we constantly strive to improve our home on these 3 features as well. And when I speak the word car is a very stimulating word, and every time we think about the car, we think about strength, speed, energy, beauty, style. So this is the way we tend to think about the cars. And even if someone has a very old car, which is not that strong, not that beautiful, not that powerful, still he or she strives to make their car beautiful in some way. Representation in the mind of that particular individual. So, students, you are right in guessing that these words represent our attitude. These are our predispositions to act in certain ways. So what is the bottom line? The bottom line of this discussion is that our attitudes are fairly stable, and they remain the same over the years. However, there is a certain aspect that goes on changing, which means that our attitudes are not only stable ways of perceiving things, but they are also subjected to change. And consumer psychologists are always interested in learning that what kind of attitudes do the target consumers have with reference to certain products, with reference to certain product features as well. So since consumer research is different collections, tools, and methodologies to find out that what are the ways people are thinking about different products, what are those factors that people consider while they are making their consumption-related decisions. So it becomes imperative for them to understand that what are the people's attitudes towards different kinds of products. So at this point, let us define attitude scales. And this definition is by no means final, but you would get to learn that what attitude actually means. Attitude scales are instruments which are used to capture evaluative data. Researchers provide respondents with a list of products or product attributes for which they are asked to indicate their relative feelings or evaluations. There are many different kinds of attitude scales that are in vogue or that could be used, but there are 4 main types of attitude scales that you could use. As you could see on the slide, these 4 scales are: number 1, Likert scale; number 2, semantic differential scale; number 3 is behavior intention scale; and number 4 is rank order scale. So let's discuss these scales one by one. Let's go towards the Likert scale first of all. Students, Likert scale is very easy to prepare and interpret for the researchers. Simultaneously, it is very easy for the respondents to understand the Likert scale. Guess what? A lot of times we see many different things in our lives, and our perceptions about them incorporate into 2 basic attitudes, which are I like it or I dislike it. So anything in the world that we see gets incorporated into these 2 basic attitudes. We like the things or we do not like the things. However, the consumer psychologists would be interested in the fine degrees of likeness as well as the dislikeness. So Likert scale is an instrument that helps consumer researchers exactly pinpoint that how the consumers think with reference to a certain product or a certain product feature in its degree of fineness. So respondents check or write the number corresponding to their level of agreement or disagreement with each series of statements that describe the attitude object under investigation. It consists of an equal number of agreement and disagreement choices on either side of the neutral choices. So students, to give you a good idea of how the Likert scale is used, let me go through an example. These days, internet is pretty much into our lifestyle. Every one of us has an email address. Without email address, our work is kind of becoming impossible for every one of us. At offices, we communicate with our colleagues through the emails. Students are communicating with their teachers on the emails. And just like a virtual university, I am delivering the lecture, which is going to be telecasted, and a lot of people are going to listen and watch to this lecture. Email is one source that connects all of these people together. Colleagues to bosses, within the offices, students and teachers. So everyone has to have an email address these days. Simultaneously, another thing that's getting into our lifestyle is called credit cards. Now, most of the people are using different kinds of credit cards these days. Now, with the advent of internet and credit card and both of these things getting into our lifestyle is kind of changing. Now, this kind of change is also understood by the products manufacturing companies, and these companies have found an absolutely new venue to present their products to their potential consumers. These are the websites on the cyberspace that you could log on to, and you could purchase different kinds of items. So if you have to shop online, usually what you do is log on to a company's website where you will get to see different kinds of pictures of different products that are on the display by the company. Now, even the virtual tours are also available, which means that you could see the product upside down or from different angles as well. Once you log on to the official website of the company for the shopping purpose, then you could go through different kinds of products, and you could put all the products that you like in an online cart. And by the end of your visit on the website, when you have seen almost all of the products, then a purchase form opens. In this purchase form, you fill out your addresses, your name, your telephone numbers, everything through which you can be reached, and finally you pay online through using your credit card. Now, purchasing items online is the new way to purchase things. It also gives consumers a different edge, which means that certain companies also provide their consumers with a way to customize their products on the websites. I've already given you one example previously, which was a multinational shoes manufacturing company which provides its consumers the facility to change the colors of their sneakers if they have logged on to their official website and if they are purchasing from their website. Over there, you can change the colors of your shoes and you can customize the product according to your requirements. So while shopping online is the new style and it's getting pretty fast into our lives, it is also rampant with certain kinds of problems. And those problems include that sometimes the credit card numbers are hacked, the personal identification numbers are hacked, and the potential consumers are robbed of their money. Which is why people have certain reservations to purchase online. Now let's suppose there is a company that's launching its website through which it would provide the facility to the consumers to purchase different items. However, before they do that, they would like to learn that what are the consumers' reservations that need to be properly addressed in the advertising so that the consumers would feel secure while purchasing online from this particular company. In order to find this out, they decide to get into a research in which they are going to use the Likert scale based questionnaire. As you can see on the slide, we have over here 6 columns. Column number 1 is statements. Column number 2 is from column number 2 to column number 6. There is a continuum that starts from strongly agree to strongly disagree. If you look at the column titled 3, that is the neutral option, which means neither agree nor disagree. From 3, if you move towards right side, then you are moving towards disagreement. And from 3, if you move towards left side, then you are moving towards agreement. So students, as you have seen on the slide, that the neutral option remains in the middle, and the disagreement and agreement options are on the right side and the left side. And all this company is trying to do is to find out that what consumers think with reference to different features of the online shopping. And those features included, it's fun to shop online, I am afraid to give my credit card numbers online. And since we are just doing this example, so I would, for simplification's sake, I have included only 2 features, but when we will get into a detailed research, then all of the features related to online shopping would be added into the questionnaire, and each question can be responded onto a 7-point scale, which means that the researchers will get the fine shades of understanding, the fine shades of recognition from the consumer's part. The most popular are 2 kinds of variations. Number 1 is satisfaction measures, and number 2 is importance scales. When we talk about the satisfaction measures, we are mostly talking about that how satisfied a particular consumer is with a certain product or a certain product feature. We discussed in our preceding discussions that consumer psychology is all about finding out that what kind of features are required by the consumers, what kind of products do the consumers appreciate, so that the companies could make only those products that would sell easily. So in this frame of reference, the satisfaction measure becomes very, very important tool. As you can see on the slide, this is the example of a bank who is trying to find out that how satisfied are the customers with the bank's online shopping. So we have once again a scale that starts from very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, then in the middle is neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. Then we get into the negative side, which means somewhat dissatisfied, and finally very dissatisfied. So students, as you can see that there is a 7-point scale being used. I will tell you later on that why an odd number scale is always used. It is always, it is either a 5-point scale or a 7-point scale. The other variation in the Likert scale is importance scale. Now let's suppose a bank offers to its target clients many different kinds of services. Now there is a possibility that a certain service may be provided through many different channels as well. So now the bank would like to learn that how important are different features or services for the target consumer. So they would use the Likert scale, as you can see on this slide. This is a list of features that are associated with shopping on the internet. For each feature, please check the one alternative that best describes how important or unimportant that feature is for you. Now the features that are the point of question are speed of downloading the order form or being able to register with the site. And this is again followed by the 7-point scale, which starts from extremely important, somewhat important, neither important nor unimportant, somewhat unimportant, and not at all important. So students, you have seen that Likert scale not only gives us the fine shades of understanding, it brings us the precise and clear information and in greater detail. So what are the benefits of using Likert scale? Likert scale has many benefits, but the main benefit out of that is that we can not only get the consumer's preferences with reference to certain features that are the question of study. For example, in the bank's case, if a bank is offering services through ATM or through online banking or by going to the banking, then consumers would be able to tell us that how satisfied they are with reference to each of these services that is being offered to them on a 7-point scale or a 5-point scale. Now, if we want to calculate that what is the bank's overall ranking with the target consumers, then all the scores that we get, we make a total of those scores, and that would be the entire score of the bank's different services that are being offered. However, if we want to concentrate over an individual service, then we are going to check the average of the scores with reference to a particular statement that corresponds to a particular feature on the Likert scale. Now let me give you a brief understanding on why a 5-point scale or a 7-point scale is always used. A 5-point scale or 7-point scale is odd number, and odd number scale is used because it allows us to have the neutral option standing right in the middle. Sometimes certain researchers would like to eliminate the neutral option. In that case, an odd numbered scale may also be used, and that would be a variation in the Likert scale. Students, I hope you would have understood the intricacies of the Likert scale. Now let's move on to the next scale, which is called semantic differential scale. Semantic differential scale typically consists of a series of bipolar adjectives. For example, good, bad, hot, cold, like, dislike, anchored at the ends of an odd-numbered continuum. For example, a 5-point scale or a 7-point scale. Semantic differential scale, like Likert scale, is very easy to prepare and interpret for the researchers, as well as it is very interesting and easy to respond for the respondents as well. As I have told you earlier, that in semantic differential scale, once again, the neutral option lies in the middle. However, on the sides of all of the options that are available on the 5-point scale or the 7-point scale are two adjectives which are bipolar. By bipolar, we mean that those adjectives oppose each other. Like for good, there is bad. Like for hot, there is cold. And like for smart, there is ugly. So bipolar adjectives are used in the semantic differential scale. In order to give you an understanding of the semantic differential scale, let me give you a brief example. Let's suppose there is a company that manufactures carbonated soft drinks. When I speak the word carbonated soft drinks, that means cola drinks. Now, just ask yourself, every time you drink a cola drink, what kind of features do you appreciate in that drink? Do you like its color? Maybe it's black or white, or now some companies are even manufacturing blue-colored carbonated soft drinks. Do you like its strength, or do you like your carbonated soft drink to be light? By strength, I mean the gas composition in the carbonated soft drink. Then there are certain kinds of CSDs which are very, very strong, and there are certain other CSTs which are not that strong. By the word CST, I mean to say carbonated soft drink. This is the short version of the same thing. So, and CSTs can also be ranked according to their taste. Now, some of the CSTs are very sweet tasting, and some other CSTs are very bitter tasting. Now, let's suppose this company wants to find out that what is the ideal profile of a carbonated soft drink with reference to 3 different features. As you can see on the slide, the 3 features that are under consideration are: number 1, strong versus light, sweet versus bitter, and served chilled versus served at room temperature. So if we are going to use a semantic differential scale, then it is going to be something like the way I am going to show you on the slide. As you can see on the slide, there are bipolar adjectives with 7 points of the scale in the middle. On one side is the first feature of the CST, that is strong or light, sweet or bitter is the second, and third is chilled or served at room temperature. Now, students, as you can see that the respondents can tell us exactly if they want their carbonated soft drink to be strong, then how strong do they like it? If they like it very, very, very strong, then it should be on the continuum point number 1. If they like it, say, not very strong and not very light, then that option would be lying in the middle. This is a neutral option. But if they like their carbonated soft drink to be very, very light, then they have the option to choose from the 7th one, which corresponds to the opposing adjective of being light. Now, this company used the semantic differential scale over the target consumers, which were hundreds and maybe in thousands, and if they calculated the score of all of the options that were ticked on all of those questionnaires, and they found out that the ideal profile of a carbonated soft drink is something like this. As you can see on the slide, the ideal profile of CSD is represented by the blue line on the graph. Now, you could see that the semantic differential scale, the readings and the findings can also be graphically presented by using this scale. Now, the ideal profile of this CSD is that this is very strong because it lies on number 2. With reference to sweetness, it lies somewhere close to the middle, and everyone likes their carbonated soft drink to be served to them chilled. So you see, this is the ideal profile of the carbonated soft drink that is reported to them by the people. Now, this company, once they find out that this is the ideal profile with reference to different features of the CSD, now they can use this profile to match. So the second part of their research would be to start asking questions from their target consumers that how do their carbonated soft drink rate with them on these 3 features. Once they carried out this research and get this questionnaire filled out from many respondents, they got something like this kind of profile as this is shown on the slide. The profile of the existing profile of this carbonated soft drink is represented on the slide. As you could see that with reference to strength, the existing feature lies somewhere in the middle. This is quite sweet tasting carbonated soft drink, and it can be drunk on a mildly cold, not so chilled and not even at the room temperature. Now, the company would like to compare both of these profiles with each other so that they could exactly pinpoint that what kind of adjustments or changes will they have to make in their carbonated soft drink. Students, I hope you would have understood the intricacies of semantic differential scale. Now, let me give you a brief review of certain of its features that need to be taken into consideration every time you plan to use semantic differential scale. The first of all, you need to understand that semantic differential scale, just like Likert scale, is also odd-numbered scale, which means that we need to have the neutral option standing in the middle, and so that we could travel equally towards the right side or towards the left side. And if we are having our questionnaire in English, then it's always preferable that we have the positive options on the left side and the negative options on the right side. Say why? because the English language is written from left-hand side to the right-hand side. And on the start, we tend to keep the positive things, and in the end, we tend to keep the negative things. Similarly, if we are doing using the Likert scale in the semantic differential scale in Urdu language, then we keep the positive options on the right side and we keep the negative options on the left side. ये इस वजह से है कि हम क्योंकि उर्दू ज़बान जो है वो दाएं हाथ से बाएं हाथ की तरफ लिखते हैं, और इस लिहाज से हम दाएं हाथ पे अपनी हमेशा पॉजिटिव ऑप्शंस रखेंगे और बाएं हाथ पे हमेशा अपनी नेगेटिव ऑप्शंस रखेंगे. अब एक दफ़ा फिर मैं आपको बताता चलूं कि हम ऑड नंबर्ड स्केल और इवन नंबर्ड स्केल क्यों इस्तेमाल करते हैं. द लॉजिक इज वेरी वेरी सिंपल because it allows us to have the neutral option standing in the middle. Similarly, you must have been able to see कि semantic differential scale जो है वो हमारे डेटा को graphical profile में भी present करता है. मसलन हमने पिछली जो 3 स्लाइड्स देखी उसमें carbonated soft drinks के graphical profiles present किए गए, which means that once the questions have been answered, they can be plotted with reference to the 7-point scale, and the graph can be drawn, a line graph can be drawn accordingly with reference to the different choices. So this allows us the benefit कि हम मुख्तलिफ profiles को आपस में compare कर सकें और products को accordingly adjust कर सकें. So students, this was the end of semantic differential scale. Now let us move forward to the third scale in line, which is called behavior intention scale. In order to understand the behavior intention scale, let me give you a small example. Sometimes products manufacturing companies or even institutions and organizations are concerned to learn that how their products would rate with their target consumers in the future. In order to have a certain degree of reliable prediction about their products and their perception amongst the target consumers, sometimes the behavior intention scales are used. As it is very clear from the word behavior intention, it means that we are trying to understand the intention of our target consumers. For example, there is a bank, and that bank would like to understand that how their products would sell with the target consumers over the next 6 months time period. In order to find out a relative amount of prediction which is reliable as well, हम ये कर सकते हैं कि हम बैंक के previous data को analyze कर सकते हैं और उसके ज़रिए हम directions draw कर सकते हैं. लेकिन इसके साथ ही साथ अगर हम चाहें, in that case, we are going to use the behavior intention scale. We are going to ask them that what do they think about the bank's different products, and how are they going to use these products over the next 6 months time period. Now let me show you a slide in which we are going to show you the behavior intention scale with reference to this study of the financial institution. As you can see on the slide, there are 2 questions. Number 1, how likely are you to continue using Bank Access online banking for the next 6 months? We have different points of the continuum, something like this. Number 1 is definitely will continue. Number 2 is probably will continue. Number 3 is middle, neutral, might or might not continue. Number 4 is probably will not continue, and next number is definitely will not continue. The next question on the line is, how likely are you to recommend Bank Access online banking to a friend? Once again, we have different points on the continuum, which will be definitely will recommend, probably will recommend, might or might not recommend, probably will not recommend, and the 5th one is definitely will not recommend. So students, I hope you would have understood the intricacies of behavior intention scale. And at this point, let me give you a brief review of what are the typical characteristics of behavior intention scale and what points you need to consider. Every time you come across a situation in your professional life where you need to predict that what are the intentions of the target consumers over a certain time period in the future, in that case, a behavior intention scale is used. It will give you a reasonable measure of understanding as to what is the intention of the consumers with reference to using a certain product in a certain way in the future. Usually such kind of predictions are drawn from the previous data of the company, which means that what is their previous sales volume, what is the direction of the sales, is it on the rise or is it on the decrease, then you could get a reasonably good idea as to what is the accurate prediction with reference to the customer services department as well, as to what kind of complaints have been originating in the customer services department and what kind of queries have been coming from different consumers to the customer services departments. And that way you could also find out that what exactly are the problems with the services that the company is offering or the products that the company is offering. And once you have all of this available quantitative data with you, you can come up with a reasonably good measure of the consumer's intentions. However, when we use the behavior intention scale, this is a very, very direct method, which means simply going to the person and asking him that what do you plan to do over the next 6 months time period? Are you going to use our product or are you going to use something else? So this was behavior intention scale. Now let's move on to the next scale on the line. The next scale is rank order scale. Students, as you can see on the slide, the rank order scale provides important competitive information and enables marketeers to identify needed areas of improvement in product design and product positioning. In rank order scale, subjects are ranked according to the positions that we would like to find out about your preferences regarding the banking methods. Please rank the following banking methods by placing a 1 in front of the method that you prefer most, a 2 next to your second preference, and continuing until you have ranked all of the methods. Now students, at this point this is important to understand that the points that we have are range from 1 to 5. And from 1 to 5 we have 5 different product lines, which include the banking offered inside the bank, the banking offered by the telephone, the banking offered by the mail, the banking offered through online, and automated teller machines, which is ATM. Now, once the target consumers, the target respondents of this study have filled out their questionnaires and the averages and the statistical calculations have been done, the final result could be something like this. As you could see on the slide, the service of inside the bank is ordered as at number 5. The banking by telephone is at number 4. Banking by mail is at number 3. Online banking is number 2, and ATM is number 1. So the banking institution knows that how their different services rate with their target consumers. Of course, they would feel certain satisfaction that at least their ATM services are ranking the best with the target consumers from out of the available services that they are offering to the target consumers. Students, this was the 4 scales that we discussed in this lecture today. In our next lecture, inshallah, we will discuss the qualitative research designs and we will have detailed discussions on topics like depth interviews, focus groups, projective techniques, and metaphor analysis. At this point, we are running short of time, and let me bid you farewell. अपना ख्याल रखिएगा, अपने गिरदे के लोगों का ख्याल रखिएगा, अपने दोस्तों का ख्याल रखिएगा और मिलते हैं अगले लेक्चर में। शुक्रिया, खुदा हाफिज़।